Hello, and welcome to Dr. Sedwood's Saturday afternoon Sed Talk. I am Dr. Cedric Wood, and I'll be going over some very time-worthy things, very important. Thank you for tuning in. Today is Saturday, July 23rd, 22, and we've had yet another shooting in Greenwood, Indiana. A young man decides to take a gun into a mall and kills three people moments before somebody else with a gun shoots him dead. What a tragedy. I think everybody in America and around the world wants to see this come to a stop. And yet we're really struggling so hard to figure out what to do. The reason we're struggling to figure out what to do is because we're not teaching the public and the legislators and the senators what's going on. And I'm going to say it again. I was so disappointed on CBS Morning Show when they interviewed Dr. John LaPook, who had interviewed the president of the American Psychiatric Association and the Canadian Psychiatric Association, and both of them were just befuddled about what's going on and what to do. It was surprising, to say the least. Well, there's no one profile that we can really pick out who's going to do this. We need to do more research on the connection between gun violence, and we've done thousands of bits of research, and so we know what it is. It's their childhood. It is their upbringing, growing up in their home. And so I'm going to propose to the state of Texas that we implement a class in every high school as soon as possible that teaches mental health. And so what are the four parts of that? The first parts would be understanding personality development, child development. How does somebody get to be 16, 17, 18, 20 and be so full of angst and so full of rage that they get a gun with the intent of shooting and killing children and adults? It's mind-boggling, and we'll go over that. The second part would be healthy relationships. We now have Senate Bill 9 here in the state of Texas that is going to be teaching kids about giving them information about how to avoid domestic violence and dating violence and child abuse. So that fits right in with that, how to have a healthy relationship. The third thing is how to be a great parent. These kids did not have great parents. Did you see Telemundo, the Mexican, the Spanish language news channel that was trying to interview the mother of the Uvalde shooter? Wow. Somebody, a mother of one of the victims, was confronting her. So she should have been confronted. I'm so shocked that it took this long. We're almost at 2 months. The mother and father should have been brought in front of an auditorium of all those parents and townspeople to be grilled. What did you do? What did you fail to do that led your son to be so full of anger and angst and emotional pain? I don't understand why we haven't done that, but this one woman took the opportunity to confront her, and the way she responded gives us a clue to her maldeveloped personality. At one point she said, you know, my son had his reasons and you can't judge him. What do you mean? Of course he can be judged. And she was saying to the accuser, you have no right. She has 100% right to call you out after losing a child like that. So I'm going to share a couple of things. There are so many of these diagrams I can share, and I'd love to see them be included in the class once it's approved by the state legislature in the spring of 2023. One would be talking about Why does anybody slap somebody? Great. At the Academy Awards, one of my favorite shows that I watch every year, we get to see a man go up and slap another man. Very mature. And what was the psychology going on? Well, we've got to teach kids about trounsel. This is what happens to children. They experience trauma, rejection, abuse, unhealthy interactions with mom and dad, so many, neglect, chaos, indulgence, or a significant loss. And when a child carries that inside of him, like young Salvador was bullied when he was a boy, right in the very classroom that he went to and shot those children. And so that was traumatic. That was abuse. Where were the adults? Where were the parents to go in there and say, you teach these children, do not bully? Who knows where they were? But he experienced that. And anybody experience that, it can lead to a quickness to react in anger, or even to slowly respond by purchasing a gun and walking in slowly and calmly and pulling the trigger and killing people. What is that dynamic? Well, the basic dynamic is ARIRA. So I call this concept ARIRA. Don't become an ARIRA. And that's a person who is arrogant, meaning I'm thinking about only about myself. Righteous indignation, which means I'm thinking about how wrong it is that you did what you did. How dare you do that? And then retributional aggression. I'll show you. I'm going to get you back. And that's what young Salvador did. And each one of these, I'm going to get you for what you did. And of course, children and adults need to learn, don't respond in that way. Now, I have a couple more letters, AR here and AW down here. A lot of times a person has this seething, angry resentment. Young Salvador had been called, the police had been called to his home with his mother and her, I guess, boyfriend several times. And did the police say, you need to find a counselor, you need to find a family therapist? Probably not. But I was very proud of the police in Highland Park, Illinois. After they'd been called to that home several times through violence, they told mom and dad that you need to go see a counselor. Did they go? Who knows? We haven't really investigated it that much. We're really not that interested in finding out why these kids become psychopathic killers. Of course, I'm being sarcastic because it's just mind-blowing that we're not doing that. Full of anger, full of resentment, and then some people go through this, and instead of getting aggressive, they aggressively withdraw. They aggressively withdraw. And that's so hurtful, whether it's a fiance or a parent or a child who doesn't call you back and doesn't allow you to visit. It's just so hurtful. And so I would go over that with the high school students to get them realizing that that's just a wrong thing to do. Now I'm going to show one more here because this is more normal everyday life, and I'm reading the book Flourish by Dr. Martin Seligman, past president of American Psychological Association, the author of Learned Helplessness, and also Authentic Happiness. But he's making a change. He says, I no longer think that our goal in life is happiness. Now it's well-being. And there's 5 components of well-being. And they sound pretty good. The first one is pleasurable feelings. Well, I've got that right there. Our basic human drive and need is to feel good or to feel better, to get away from feeling bad. Second is to express who we are, to have things get done, to make progress in our life. We're always wishing and needing that. And so in order to do that, we reach out for the B list here. This is very similar to what Abraham Maslow said was our basic human needs, like food and air and water. Of course, we need that, but that's not a psychological need. And over here, we need love and affection, a sense of belonging, connection. We need that, so we reach for that. And why do we do that? Because if we success, and we're satisfied and we achieve a group of friends or a romantic partner, then what? We feel good. Well, what kind of good feeling? Well, my 5 words are: we feel peaceful, we feel comfortable, we feel safe, we feel well-being. There's the word that Dr. Seligman is focusing on. And I would say there's some real joy that can be had if you complete this cycle. I call it the Rotary engine of life. And I was even working on that this morning, the constant flow. Now that word comes from Dr. Csikszentmihalyi, flow. But he was more thinking about when you're getting things done, you're in the groove and your mind is just going and all 8 cylinders are firing. And that's great. I'm kind of expanding the definition that life is the flow of reaching out for these needs and then hopefully having things go as they should. That's need number 4. And we get a completion of the task. We get the job. We are rewarded. We get satisfaction of a certain kind of need. And then that feeds back into that. And as this rotary engine goes around and we get these needs met, for things to go as they should, that means avoiding chaos and disaster and disappointment. We have a need to avoid that. And so the flow of life is to always to get some place where we achieve this and where we avoid that. So that's, you could say, is the need for safety, which was Abraham Maslow's second need on his hierarchy of needs. But if this goes well, what do we have? We develop self-esteem. So kids that have low self-esteem have not gotten their needs met. Their flow, their rotary engine of their life is not going well. Every one of these shooters, and they just reported on the evening news, I think Friday night, Nora O'Donnell, something like 300 plus shootings since the beginning of the year. Each and every one of those young men did not have the flow of getting their needs met so that they could feel good and feel good about themselves. So we adults need to really start focusing on young people who have not killed somebody yet, young people who have not committed suicide yet, young people who may be depressed or anxious and getting worse, and young people who just suffer every day with a low sense of self, poor self-esteem. It's not a matter of just saying, good job, attaboy, good girl, that's a good job. That's good, that's important, teachers should do that. But what's behind low self-esteem is that they've reached out for their needs to be met when they were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, 17 years old, 18 years old, and they did not get their needs met. So this class that I'm proposing in every high school in Texas, I'll worry about the other 49 states later, would include parenting. When you have a child, this is what you have to do to make sure your child functions well and has self-esteem by focusing on getting that child's needs met. Young Salvador did not get his needs met. Period. Mom, Dad, where were you? At least we got to see the response from his mom, and it was a snarky response. At least, to her good credit, she said the words, "I'm sorry." And I completely understand when she shared, she carries this with her. She, like the pain. And I honor her for saying that, and that makes perfect sense. But the snarky comments that she shot out at this woman, how dare you accuse me or to say that? I hope God forgives you. You hope God forgives the mother of a child that was killed by your child? You should be saying, I hope God forgives my son for doing such a horrible, psychopathic, homicidal thing to 20 one innocent, beautiful people. If you have any interest in this, please call me, write me a letter, an email, a text, or a telegram. I don't care how you contact me. Let me know that you'd like to be put on the email group that I'm sending out as I keep track of all this. Officially, it's a special interest group within the Texas Counseling Association. I'm a senator to the Texas Counseling Association Senate, and I am starting this special interest group. I hope it will become a division, but anybody in the state of Texas can get involved in talking to our senators and our representatives about getting this bill passed, mandating a class in every high school and mandating that every counselor and school-based clinician calls the parents of a student who's struggling and showing signs and encouraging them to seek counseling, preferably family therapy. Get mom, dad, grandmother, and son into that room to save lives. Okay? Thank you for watching. God bless you. Let's make this happen. Thank you.